Good morning, internet. That's quite some news to wake up to, huh? I didn't wake up to. It's always like people going, I woke up to this. So I don't know. You guys sleeping all the time, huh? Honestly, to be real honest with you, let me just quickly open up my notes here. Okay, physical ending in 2028 as far as Sony goes. So apparently they're not going to offer discs for any sort of game on their platform starting in 2028, meaning the PS6 will very likely be just digital only. And there's just one opinion you can have on this, in my opinion. There can't be two opinions on this. Even though I'm going to have a different take on this altogether, but less options is never a good thing. It's always a bad thing for the consumer. Having less options will never benefit anyone except maybe the rich one, the big companies that are already doing big money. And those people really don't need ways or help to earn even more than they already do, especially in these times where shady things are going on left and right. Not having less options as a consumer is never a good thing. There's a really hard time to justify this. It makes no sense whatsoever. It is really hard to find an excuse for that. You can't explain this rationally. And yet, to be real honest with you, this would have hit me much harder 3 years ago. And just to explain where I'm coming from, so just so that to explain myself properly, I grew up with the PS1. My definition of a video game is whatever the hell is going on the PS1. And of course, I had physical copies, with my hard earned money. I wasn't a coal miner or a businessman back then. I had allowance and I had part time jobs. It was my pride and joy, like proudly displaying on the shelf my taste in video games and the physical manifestation of this hobby that I love like nothing else. So I'm not a modern physical only fuckboy that just joined, I don't know, back in 2017 and doesn't understand the uproar with the whole physical copy thing. So it's not like this isn't hitting me at all. But at the same time, it is really hard to be devastated by this news for me personally. There are many reasons for that, but the main reason is how strictly woven video games are with the internet today. So much so that you sometimes need day one patches, not necessarily all the time, but the statistic actually looks pretty good on games that run from the beginning to end without a day one patch, without a problem. There are some problems here and there with game breaking bugs and whatnot. And the fun fact, this isn't a modern plague that was actually present back then too, but that inevitably makes offline only versions, quote unquote, to call them like that, automatically worth less, not worthless, worth less. Like, you don't really have the definitive version of the game on the disc, which is a really big caveat for me personally. And I'm a huge gameplay addict. I love every aspect of a gameplay. I play games for the gameplay mainly. I can play the same game 20 times back to back just to get better at it. I actually do that, by the way. I'm a maniac like that. I play games several times just to get better at them, just to understand something, find some cool text, learn cool text that others have found out and whatnot. And if you are like that, then every patch note actually matters in games. Like the vanilla version, the 1.10 version, the 1.02 version, or whatever. It's not even like fighting game exclusive at this point. You have huge patch notes for offline games, for different builds, where the devs are like, oh yeah, this one does 5% less damage. This one behaves differently now. This one has this buffs. This one has this buffs. And then the status quo you were used to like a week ago or back on when the game released, and fast forward it's 2 years now, is just entirely gone. The environment you grew up with and got accustomed to just doesn't exist anymore. And that to me means it's really meaningful. It actually means a lot to me because if I could form this perfect world to live in, then I would make it so that you can revisit any version of the game you want that used to exist, was officially published to the public. You could just go back to version 1.02 just to see how it used to be back then, and that would be a crucial requirement for me. But obviously, we don't live in a world like that. So all you will have is either the most recent version, re released maybe in 20 years, and you're playing the most recent version the developer released, or you are going to have this offline version where you can play the vanilla version of the game without DLCs, without any patch updates and patch notes and new features that eventually came later. And to me, that's like really souring the idea of owning games physically. That's really, I don't know what it is. Maybe I'm the only person on earth thinking that way, but it's it's making it really hard for me to look at a PS5 game on the shelf and be like, I'm glad I own this in a physical form. That's one reason, by the way. So it's not the definitive reason why I think this way, but that's a huge caveat for me. The other reason is that I eventually decided, it probably happened somewhere in COVID, that I don't want to see everything under the sun. I don't want to play every game ever. I just want to spend time getting better at games I love, and spending time with things I truly cherish and learn new things about them. And you'd be surprised how much you can actually find out about your favorite games instead of just watching video game essays about it. Being with the community and looking at the speedrun scene, or not even the speedrun scene, just people that play this game for fun and talk about text and whatnot, you can find out so much about games you love and thought you knew everything about. There's always, funny enough, there's always something new to find out, even 20, 25 years later. But that's what my MO is for a very long time. And put on top the fact that Sony is apparently working on a handheld version of the PS6 that will eventually drop. There are always leaks about that one every now and then, so I highly expect that to actually happen. It's not just going to be some daydream bullshit. And if that is going to be a thing, then I actually want to own games I like physically so I can, run them on the handheld. And that handheld is going to work more like a Steam Deck than everything you used to know. So it's not going to be the second PSP or PS Vita where dedicated games are going to be made for it. It's more like the Steam Deck where games you already own on the PlayStation Store can be run on it. So if that's the case, then it's going to make it really hard to buy physical games because, let's say, I love Final Fantasy 16, by the way, and I want to maybe play it on the handheld version. I don't know if it's going to be comfortable with that type of gameplay, but a CD is not going to help me in that situation. So I'm now sticking to the sticking to the digital version of it. That's reason number 3. The main reason why I can take this all so lightly is probably because there are, how am I going to put this without putting me in legal trouble? Like, listen, I'm not trying to advocate illegal stuff or any shady business or whatever, but I am so glad that extra legal measures exist, let's put it that way. Because let's be real honest here for a second, okay? Nobody in the industry is interested in preserving games. It's not going to happen. The Stop Killing Games Foundation failed, despite being very favored at the beginning. They just dropped it, and they were, as far as I understood, really open for alternatives and every solution whatsoever that would prevent just deactivating games, and flushed down the toilet. It's just gone. And you can't even buy old games on the modern store shelf. I don't know how it exactly looks like at Xbox and Nintendo because I'm a PlayStation guy, and the pickings are slim on the PlayStation Store. You can barely buy anything. We are licking our fingers for retro releases, and it's happening like every 3 months or so. Time Crisis was in May. Onimusha Dawn of Dreams is in August. And I think the Resident Evil retro releases were last year, like Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 3. It's slow as fuck over here. Nothing's happening. Nintendo is also really not interested in reselling their older games, despite the huge demand, while also actively hunting down the people that try to preserve it. And the second-hand retro market exploded in price during COVID. So, can you blame anyone for sticking to extra legal means? So, so how do I say this without getting into legal trouble? Learn how to set up emulators. That's all I'm going to say. The rest of the road, you walk on your own. Learn how to set up emulators. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not advocating anything else. Just learn how to set up emulators. Maybe I'm talking about food emulators. Eve 344. Who knows? Learn how to set up emulators. This is, what's the biggest problem I have with this? This is going to sound so silly, but I only recently started to earn the big money, having a proper job and whatnot, and finally being able to afford things I couldn't afford back then in abundance. And the minute that happened, things I were interested back then and I used to love just slowly disappear. Like they are just gone. I used to love handhelds, nowhere to be seen. Also, never going to come back in that form. You can quote me on that. It's not going to happen. A second PSP or Nintendo DS is never going to happen again. And retail, I like the actual physical store you walk into. Why are the children yelling like that outside? I am innocent, by the way. I'm not doing anything. I'm not torturing children. They're just yelling outside. But the physical store, yeah, that's very bad. The physical store, pretty empty these days. They used to had fancy controllers and collector's edition and whatnot, and all of that is gone. And I hope that this is going to be a huge copium. It's not going to happen, but I really hope that once physical games disappear, which will unfortunately happen eventually, once that happens, they're going to have all these other fancy stuff like controllers or other peripherals. Is that how you pronounce it? All that stuff. Like I'm looking for a hitbox arcade stick, leverless, buttons only, and I wish so much that I could just walk into a store, see a fancy one, and just buy it. I am desperate, like looking for ways to throw out my money, and I can't. So I hope like something like that will at the very least color up the physical stores a little bit, but I'm not going to put my hopes up. I just hope a little bit somewhat in the middle that something like that will happen. But let's be really honest with each other. The writing was on the wall for a very long time. If you're IT affiliated, that's not the word. If you have a little bit of literacy in that area, then you know that we are absolutely shifting towards digital environments, going away from physical tools and whatnot. USB sticks are absolutely rare these days. Think about it. Let that sink in. USB sticks are almost gone. So this was inevitable. And at the very least, honestly, I think staying its ground for 5 generations is quite a feat, at the very least. Like, if it was for me, I also this perfect world I'm thinking about, physical copies would never disappear. Other things would disappear, but physical games, I would have kept it. I would have kept it for many more generations. I wish it would be staying here for many more generations, but it doesn't look like it will. And I don't think Sony is just doing this half-heartedly, like half-assed, just saying 2028 it's not going to happen anymore. I think that's some really big business calculation that happened there, and it's no wonder that that's happening together with the game key cards or whatever the hell that is the Switch 2 is trying to pull off. The writing was on the wall for a very long time. We have been dreadfully expecting this future a very long time now. So, and here it is. And who knows? Maybe the backlash is so big that they are backpedaling on that, but I don't see it. I don't see that. But on a different note, 2028. That sounds like the release of the PS6 to me.